Good morning, everybody. I'm Chris Poget with Turnip Seed Engineers. We're here to conduct the City of Jasper public meeting. The meeting is required as part of the funding application for USDA rural development funding for proposed sewage system improvements. The purpose of the meeting is to inform the public about a potential project and a potential application for federal funding. It is a requirement of USDA that the public meeting be held, that the public be invited, that the meeting be advertised at least 10 days in advance of the meeting, and that the minutes be provided to USDA Rural Development as part of the funding application. The city has made a tentative application for funding for this project. At this point, we don't know when that funding is expected, other than to say that the U.S. government's fiscal year ends September 30th, and that everybody on the state and national level is working to have an offer to the city for funding prior to that deadline, and an obligation of funds made if the city so chooses. The description of the project that will be the subject of the potential funding is sewerage system improvements, specifically an expansion of the existing water pollution control plant. The current water pollution control plant capacity is 780,000 gallons a day, and the plant is nearing capacity. In addition, the Georgia Environmental Protection Division, or EPD, has notified the city of future permit changes that would require both temperature control and some additional nutrient removal if they continue in the existing discharge location at Polecat Branch, or tributary to Polecat Branch. So the two components to the proposed project are, number one, to increase the capacity from 780,000 gallons a day to 1.56 million gallons per day, which is approximately double. And to get a permit for that additional capacity to give the city some reserve to accommodate some potential new development, future development. And the second component of the project would be to relocate the discharge location from the Polecat Branch tributary adjacent to the plant, instead to put the discharge from the treatment facility into Long Swamp Creek, just downstream of the existing raw water intake where the drinking water for the City of Jasper is provided. So those two components of the project make up the sum total of the scope of work proposed. The estimated cost for the project as it stands right now is $7.66 million. That's the amount in the preliminary loan application that's been filed online with USDA Rural Development. That number is subject to change based on updates of construction costs, and also if there's any other components that the city wants to add as part of the project, whether it be equipment or any other kind of eligible project cost that can be added during a docket conference where the final funding terms are negotiated with USDA Rural Development. The schedule, as I mentioned, we're anticipating that the project will be approved by USDA prior to September 30th. I should say that in the interim, the preliminary engineering report with the details of the project, as well as the environmental report that was prepared, have both been approved or concurred with on a state level, and have been forwarded to the USDA office in Washington, D.C. for their approval, because the project exceeds a $5 million ceiling, which is the limit of which the state can approve projects directly and on their own. So as soon as we hear back from them, of course we'll provide that information to the city. The trigger for getting that approval completed is the submittal of the minutes from this meeting, as well as the attendance sheet and whatnot, proving that the meeting did take place. With that, I should mention too that we've got a flow schematic for the proposed improvements to the plant in a little more detail. Right now, if you were to visit the water pollution control plant, you'd see that there's one main aeration basin, that there's one main sludge holding tank, that there's 2 clarifiers, and really everything else out there in the plant exists in a series for the treatment. The proposed doubling of the treatment plant capacity adds a second aeration tank, adds a second sludge holding tank, increases the capacity of the chlorine contact chamber and the dechlorination facilities. It also adds 2 more clarifiers and a pump station to move the treated water from the existing plant location over to Long Swamp Creek. So that'll be the sum total of the project. With that, we would typically open the floor up to questions from the public or input from any citizens wanting more information about the project or any types of considerations that they would like the city to make on the project. I should note too that we've had 2 previous public hearings about environmental issues, going through the details of everything from fish and wildlife to floodplain management, and there have been no objections raised either from a state or federal agency level, and no objections or comments input from the public. So the project is proceeding as originally planned. Are there any comments? Hearing none, we can adjourn this public meeting. Thank you for your attendance.